Hello and welcome to iParent 101. On behalf of Alabama Christian Academy, I am Ryan Kendall, and the purpose of this episode is to show you, parents, how to delete apps from your student's iPad and prevent them from downloading the app again. The best way to use this, or where you're going to use this the most, is if your child is playing a certain app, game, or there are other apps that they're using that you don't want them to have. If you don't want them to have any messaging apps, for example, we can get rid of iMessage, and then you can block them from getting all these other apps. And this is how you do it. We're going to be using the restrictions in the settings, and we'll get there in a second. But first of all, what you want to do is find all the apps that you don't want your student to have on their iPad, be it games or whatever else, as long as it's not one they need for school. No, they don't need games for school, by the way. I'm talking about like the dictionary app, for example, might not be a good one to delete. I don't see your child sitting on the couch reading the dictionary instead of doing the chores or whatever, though, for example. Find the apps you don't want them to have and delete them. Let's say it's Facebook. You just touch and hold the app. It starts to wiggle. That's what we call wiggle mode. And you see the X in the top left corner. Just go ahead and touch that X. It's going to ask you, are you sure you want to delete this app? At this point, you go ahead and hit delete. But notice that it says deleting Facebook will also delete all of its data. Now, I'm not going to delete Facebook just for that reason. I've got passwords and whatnot saved in there. But your student might not want you to delete gaming apps because they have a certain amount of progress that they've made in the game, and if you delete it, they're going to lose all of that progress. So be sure you know that that's one of the consequences of you deleting these apps. Now, if your child doesn't listen to you when you say don't play that anymore until your homework's done or whatever, then they're going to reap the consequences, and that's up to you as a parent. Now, there's two things I want you to notice on this screen before I go into the settings. And first of all, that's the App Store right here. You can see that. And then FaceTime. I'm going to, and also iTunes. We're going to get rid of all three of those apps. And we're going to do that, and they won't be able to get them back, by the way. And we're going to do that by going into the settings. So go ahead and touch that with your finger. And this is what your settings look like whenever you first come in. And we want to find the General tab, which is usually highlighted. And down at the bottom, if we scroll down, near the bottom, let's say, there's the restrictions. Okay, so let's go ahead and touch that with your finger. It'll turn blue. And then go to this screen. And you can see all of the restrictions that you can turn on. Some have already been turned on by ACA. Many of them have not, so let's go ahead and enable restrictions. It's going to ask you for a passcode, and the smart thing to do is to enter something that's not 1234 or 1111. Find something that your student will never ever figure out and enter that number. Now, I'm using 1111 because I'm just going to turn it off here in a second anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, now in the restrictions, as you can see, you can turn off all sorts of different apps. I would probably leave Safari on. I would probably leave the camera on because your students may need the camera in class and they're going to want to get on the internet. If your student is having trouble going to sites that they shouldn't go to, we'll have another video on how you can delete Safari and get a different app to keep them from doing that. They don't need FaceTime though. So let's go ahead. All you have to do is kind of touch it, kind of swipe a little bit, and FaceTime will turn off. Same thing with iTunes if you don't want them to download any music or movies or whatever. The one that we're focusing on in this video though is installing apps. Let's go ahead and turn that off. Okay, so installing apps is off. And while we're here, I'm just going to go ahead and explicit language for Siri. That way Siri's not going to say anything naughty. Now that all those are taken care of, you can just get out of the settings and it's all saved. We're going to close this. And notice on this very first screen that FaceTime is gone, iTunes is gone, and the App Store is gone. This is going to prevent your student from going and finding and downloading music, This is going to prevent your student from going and finding and re-downloading games that you have deleted, and also they don't have access to FaceTime anymore. Now, something that you're going to want to keep in mind is that there are other apps that do the same thing as FaceTime, Skype, for example. You'll want to get rid of that one. ACA is going to be removing iMessage from all of the iPads in the near future, and if you want to keep your student from texting back and forth via their iPad, then you can go ahead and delete all the messaging apps and then turn the apps off in the settings. One other thing that we need to mention before we close this video out is that occasionally a teacher might say, hey students, I want you to download this game or this app rather, and in class your student will just have to say, Mr. or Mrs. so-and-so, I can't download that app because my parent has restricted me from doing that. And so the teacher will know that that's fine, okay, just make sure that when you go home it's downloaded before you come to school the next day. And then it would be your son or daughter's responsibility to say, hey mom or dad, can you enter the passcode and turn installing apps back on because Mrs. so-and-so said that I need this app. So you just go and enter your passcode and restrictions. Installing apps is on. The App Store is back. You go ahead and click there and find the app, download it, and then go straight back to settings, straight back to restrictions, and then turn it back off. If you have any questions or concerns or need any further instruction, just email me at rkendall, RKENDALL, at alabamachristian.com. Thanks so much for listening.